Let's head to the beach. Beachhead, 1983, Access Software. Start by selecting a 1 or 2 player game at 1 to 4 difficulty levels. The main deciding factor for the difficulty level is how many ships you start with, and as you can see at the bottom, we have a handful of ships available. I'm just playing at skill 1, by the way, because I'm a coward. The blinking dot on the map is a fortress that we are trying to take out, and we need to approach that first. We have the option to approach into the main bay or by the secret entrance. If I can get there. The secret entrance requires us to navigate our ships through a minefield while dodging torpedoes. Yeah, they are torpedoes. Just bear with me. By moving our ships through this way, we will catch the enemy by surprise and will have an easier time doing the subsequent sequences. It is perhaps a bit tedious, but it is depending on what kind of gameplay you enjoy. If you enjoy the other sections, then you can just save yourself this little trip. But I've always gone this way, because yeah, why not? Now I could cut this out, but I'm just going to leave it in, because it doesn't take an awful long time. In a group of arcade conversions from that time, it was nice to see that there were some homebrewed games which were actually quite enjoyable. Many of them were far more enjoyable than any arcade game ever created, because of course the arcades at the time were relatively simple as well. And something to be said for arcade conversions is that arcade games usually gave you some sort of experience, either with the control system or extensive use of resources to make flashy games, whereas the home computer systems at the time maybe didn't have the necessary power, or maybe the people making the conversions even just didn't have the necessary time or skill. That was close. Regardless, just need to navigate our ships through at some point. Who says ships don't have handbrakes, huh? Just waiting for that one, maybe. Just 2 more to go. Like any other game from the time, this is a score-based system, basically. So it's a bit of a score chaser, if you want. This section, I know, it's probably a bit dull, but as I said, it makes the subsequent sections a bit easier, or rather shorter. There's basically a trade-off between spending the time here or spending the time on the other 2 sections. We are now in the bay and we've caught the enemy by surprise, and now we need to engage the enemy. And we start out by having to deal with incoming fighters. Just trying to get used to the fact that the aim is actually reversed, so down is up and up is down. Just taking some getting used to, but we'll get there. We need to blow up a certain amount of planes in order to progress to the next section. The ammunition, it will recharge over time, but if you just hold on the fire button, you're cannons are moving slower, and you will run out of ammunition, and then you will have to wait for it to regenerate. That plane is a bonus plane, will get 2,000 points or 10,000 points, something, whatever. Completely irrelevant. If you look at the bottom right of the corner, you can, of the screen even, of the corner, yeah. You can see there's a damage rating, and if you take 20 damage, you lose one of your ships. You can always argue that ships that were designed to withstand 155 plus millimeter shells would probably not be bothered much by fighters, but we'll go with it. The following section, we have to deal with the ships and the carriers trying to run away. Sail away, I should say. And by using our 250mm cannons, our aim is to sink them. The notice of how close we are to hitting is very important, because half a degree elevation is equivalent to 100 meters, so ideally you want to go for the ones that shoot at you, because they of course pose the greater threat to you. They're supposed to be destroyers, cruisers, battleships, and they all take one shot each. Very powerful 250mm cannons, I have to admit, but let's roll with it, shall we? I'm fairly sure I get my aim completely wrong there. Can't be worse than the other guys. Well, technically not very challenging, this. I have to admit, both the previous section and this section are actually quite enjoyable in their own way. One thing I've noticed, even if the ships manage to zero in on you, if they die just as the shot is supposed to be hitting you, it will actually miss. A gameplay mechanic, because technically as soon as the shells has been fired, they are not going to change direction, range, or anything else, just because you're shooting whatever, fire the shells. We can only take 4 ships into the next section, so you get bonus points for any ships remaining, and now we actually have to do the beachhead. We're going to be landing some tanks. And this is where the game goes from being bleh, nothing, to being suddenly very, very frustrating. Your task is to get the tanks going through this gauntlet obstacle course down to the fortress itself, and then you have to hit 10 different markers that will light up on the fortress, and only the one that lights up is vulnerable, in order to destroy the fortress. The problem, of course, is getting there first. The gun positions you face are not the challenge are definitely the obstacles. A curious note is if you shoot an enemy that leaves a score number behind, if you drive into the score, you will lose a life. It's a bit of an oversight, I think. But the score is actually a physical object for the tanks. But we got one tank through, and you can see there's a huge cannon on top of that fortress, and it will turn around and face you, and then it will aim at you, and kaboom. So you can't do all 10 markers in one sitting, with one tank, I should say. So you have to use multiple tanks. Maybe you could get away with 2, but I would argue at least 3. And each tank you get down to the fortress will have a harder time for the next one. Will cause a harder time for the next one, I should say, with defensive positions being altered the obstacles remain in place. They are not moved in any shape or form. And of course, still getting used to down is up and up is down. So I can spoil this right now by saying I will not complete the game. The other sections are quite enjoyable, but they're also relatively simple, and they're leading up to this where it's not particularly challenging as such, but it's just the position of which you have to avoid obstacles is absolutely minute. If a microscopic amount of pixel from your tank overlaps with a microscopic amount of pixel from anything else, you lose your tank. And if you're trying to dodge a shot, there's a good chance it will smack into a wall or a mine or something else. And while it's enjoyable, it does feel a bit frustrating that there's such a long lead up to get to this bit, only to be stopped cold because, of course, the tanks will not stop. They don't have brakes, they don't have accelerators, they constantly move from right to left. All in all though, a very enjoyable game, especially for its age. But yeah, nothing much more to say about Beachhead. But thanks for watching, take care, and see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.